welcome back to your Heat latest on FanArc. Thanks again so much for joining us this Wednesday. I'm Sam Shapiro. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, stop what you're doing right now. Click that subscribe button and of course like this video. We've got great daily content you don't want to miss all right here Monday through Friday. But unfortunately, the performance Miami showed last night at the Scotiabank Arena was anything but spectacular as they fell to Toronto to kick off this doubleheader, the last of the regular season for them. They lost to the Raptors 121-95, and quite honestly, this game was painful to watch. Watching Miami put up less points in each of the four quarters throughout this game. Their highest coming in the first quarter, 27 points. That kind of settling around 24 points in the second quarter, then 25 in the third. But closing out the game, finishing with 19 points, I think clearly is a clear indicator that shows this Miami Heat team is not coming into the last week of their regular season with the type of energy that many Heat fans are hoping that they were going to garner, looking in the hopes that this Heat team would be able to gain some momentum heading into the end of the regular season. But unfortunately, we had seen anything but that in last night's contest for the 305. I don't know why I couldn't find my word there. Scotty Barnes led the way scoring-wise for the Raptors, 25 points, 10 of 16 shooting. Basically had a clinic, I would say, against this Miami Heat team, taking advantage of the fact that, Miami once again without Norman Powell in the lineup. And I think him and Brandon Ingram ultimately had their way with this Miami Heat team, combining for 48 of Toronto's 121 points in this contest. Miami, for the record, by the way, has only scored under 100 points in 6 games this season. In 3 of those 6 games this year, it's been against the Toronto Raptors. And the worst part is, this game isn't even their highest scoring performance against the Raptors so far this season. Their highest was the 96-point performance they had against Toronto back in December of 2015. This was at least a little bit better than the second contest that came on December 23rd when Miami lost to Toronto 91-112. So I don't want to say this was a step in the right direction, but one thing that this definitely shows for sure is the gap in talent between the teams that are at least looking towards playoff contention and the teams in the play-in tournament. Now, obviously, as we kind of checked back, now Toronto, I believe at 44-35, they're at least, from what it appears to be, kind of right on that cusp of being the 7th seed or the 6th seed, depending on how things kind of shape up with Philly and Atlanta. But, I mean, in the beginning of the regular season, they were a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. They've, compared to some of the other teams we're looking at, Detroit, Boston, the Knicks, Cleveland, Atlanta, Philly, I would say they've kind of fallen off in comparison to those teams. So the fact that this Raptors team is coming out at home to basically end the regular season, pretty much doing what they've done to Miami all year long at a time when they're not playing their best basketball, to me is a clear indicator that there is a major gap in talent between at least the first 5 teams seeded, that being Detroit, Boston, New York, Cleveland, and some might argue Atlanta just because the hot basketball they've been playing recently. There's clearly a gap, and I think Toronto was part of that gap earlier in the year, but because of how they've fallen off, has kind of separated themselves a little bit, but not too much to that point, because clearly it's evident that they're not too far behind if they're clearly still holding Miami to under 100 points this regular season. So far, in all 3 contests they've played this year, Miami has not scored over 96 points. So we'll have to see if Miami can get it done in this final game tomorrow, where the doubleheader against Toronto concludes. After that, Miami's got a battle with Washington, followed by their last game of the season with the Atlanta Hawks. So in a perfect scenario, if Miami can win out these next 3 games, maybe they can find a way to get into the 9th seed. But saying that out loud doesn't necessarily sound like an exciting thing if you're thinking about a Miami Heat team that could potentially go the distance, which kind of, begging to my point, or kind of leans into the next topic rather that I would want to talk about here in today's episode. Does it really make sense for Miami to tank? And I talked about this in yesterday's episode as well, considering what's at stake, what Miami could be playing for, and if Miami were to lose, what they would be setting themselves up for long term. So I think that if you are able to find some momentum in these last 3 games, you can find a way to slither into the 9th, maybe the 8th seed. The play-in tournament is looking like it's going to be a bloodbath in the sense that Miami can clearly handle the 2 teams that they're going to have to play, or, the matchups they're going to have to go up against, rather. I think that will be a little bit more of an indicator as to whether or not Miami could potentially go the distance instead of doing what they did against Cleveland last year and putting up one of the worst postseason outings in NBA history. I think the point differential in the last game where they played Cleveland, I believe the point difference was 55, which I think is the 3rd largest in NBA playoff history. Anyway, I think anything that Miami could potentially do this year might be better than that if they are going to play Detroit. But if they're going to play Boston, I think it's just going to be a repeat of that. So in that scenario, at least if you tank out this play-in season, or you tank out these play-in games, you kind of fall in that lottery ballpark, could potentially get up to the 12th pick, most likely will fall to either 13 or 14 and then have a small percentage of a chance of maybe getting a better pick than the 12th pick. I think if you're Miami, where you have a need in both your backcourt and your front court, Miami in desperately need of a center and desperately in need of a point guard, it might not necessarily hurt to see where they could fall in the lottery to potentially pick up, I would argue, a center, because you got a point guard last year. I think there is a ton of potential for him to at least develop into a starter caliber player from the play we had seen from him this season in Kasparis Yakuchones. So, and I talked about prospects here on the channel that I'd like to see in episodes to come. We're definitely going to dive into some more big man prospects that Miami could look into ahead of the draft. But I think right now, I think there definitely is an argument for Miami to potentially consider tanking with what it could do for Miami's future. I think would help the team and their overall success in maybe, I don't want to 100% clear cut say next year just yet, but maybe the season after or the season preceding that could maybe help Miami more down the line than if they try to win out the rest of this regular season and see if they can go the distance in the play-in and this postseason rather. Because I don't see them getting past the semifinals, and that's being extremely optimistic. I don't see them getting past the first round. And if another first round exit is what this organization wants, then just goes back to settling for mediocrity for me at least. Drop in the comments what you guys think and what you believe makes the most sense for Miami to do at this point in time. Diving into a topic of conversation that was pretty much in every episode here throughout the month of February, we're going to dive back into the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors. There were reports coming out yesterday that suggested Miami was very likely to win the Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes, and according to Sam Shapiro, the Bucks came close to accepting the Heat's trade offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo at the deadline. He says a trade including Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, and multiple draft picks was ultimately what Milwaukee was close to accepting, but ultimately they decided to pursue a stronger offer in the summer. Yeah, obviously no shit. That's what we saw, duh. It's as a Heat fan, it's extremely frustrating to see this report come out because I feel like that reaction, obviously, was what a lot of Heat fans were thinking, have been thinking over the course of the last year, starting with the whole Kevin Durant situation, then with the Giannis Antetokounmpo situation, when he first initially declared, at least kind of indicated that the idea of him wanting to leave Milwaukee was factual and not just conspiracy. But As a Heat fan, it's kind of annoying to see Shams officially come out and report this. Any Heat fan would have wanted to acquire Antetokounmpo. The writing was on the wall, all on the wall, that the deal was extremely close to coming to fruition, but it didn't. It's at least nice to see some credibility behind it and maybe could put some weight into this deal actually coming to fruition this summer. But I don't want to get my hopes up again. Between Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, and now Giannis Antetokounmpo, and even John Morant to some degree. This is like the fourth superstar prospect that Miami has gotten their hopes up for, and nothing has happened up until this point. So the report to me was almost a little bit of a tease and kind of a little bit of a fuck you in some sort of way. But it's at least nice to know, at least on the other side of the argument, maybe the devil's advocate, if you will, it's at least nice to know that Miami is trying, because we've talked about on the channel here, kind of making it kind of almost asking the question indirectly, is Miami even trying, because they're not getting any deals done? So to what degree are they actually trying? At least this report kind of at least somewhat indicates that Miami is putting in some sort of effort to try to acquire a superstar talent. And although they haven't gotten that deal for Antetokounmpo done yet, at least this report indicates that all hope isn't completely lost on the Heat winning the Antetokounmpo sweepstakes. But I don't want to say this should get anybody's hopes up even more than they already are up. And right now, they're still looking at an all-time low. Well, maybe not even, because of how this Milwaukee Bucks organization is looking right now, considering the team being looked at for the whole situation with Giannis, Kevin Porter Jr. now having surgery on his knee. I mean, it's not looking like the grass is necessarily greener in Milwaukee either. So, and also with potentially Doc Rivers out the door, which that's seeming pretty likely now, more than it did maybe a month or two ago, even though if you'd gone on Bucks Twitter, you could see the amount of hatred for Doc Rivers being the head coach of Milwaukee. But personally, as a Heat fan, I don't like it, because this is just teasing to me, honestly. Drop in the comments what you guys think, because to me, I just felt like I was getting teased. That's going to do it for this episode of your Heat Latest here on FanArc. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. And if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. We've got great daily content you don't want to miss, all right here, Monday through Friday. Thanks again so much for joining us. I'm Sam Shapiro. Have a great Wednesday.